Hello everyone and welcome to ACAD-01, which is an introduction to air traffic control. What we will be looking at is to state and explain the functions and responsibilities of air traffic controllers. So effectively, what we as air traffic controllers do, what our responsibilities are, and how we can split those responsibilities up among different people. So let's first talk about the purpose of air traffic control. The number one thing that we always do is we want to prevent collisions between aircraft and any obstructions, be that other aircraft, the side of a mountain, or kind of telephone poles, vehicles on aerodromes, things like that. Then we also want to maintain an expeditious and orderly flow of traffic to make sure that everyone gets to where they're going as efficiently as possible, as a collective. To do that, we might sometimes have to delay one aircraft, but in general, everything will be more efficient. We also want to coordinate with tactical command and control agencies to ensure the expeditious flow of traffic and to assist in getting the mission done as effectively as possible. As we are in DCS, much of it revolves around the air mission. So we need to think about that. We will also provide advice and information which is useful to a pilot to be able to conduct a flight safely. So this could be weather information, traffic information, information about runway surface conditions, and the list goes on. And then if something does happen, we would notify the appropriate people to provide search and rescue if we are simulating that. To accomplish these goals, there are two types of control that we can use. We have positive control, where we positively identify aircraft and we know where they are at all times. So we can do this either using your eyes in the real world, or DCS's F11 camera, or F2 maybe, something like that. Or using radar systems. We tend to use LOT ATC for this currently in DCS, and this simulates both primary and secondary surveillance radar. We also have procedural control, where we do not need to positively identify people, or aircraft even, and we perform all of our duties solely by information coming through the radio, and normally some sort of information or some sort of way of keeping track of what aircraft are doing. So aircraft will report their position either at mandatory reporting points or where the controller has asked them to, and in that way controllers can keep track of aircraft and give them relevant instructions and information. We typically split the different air traffic control positions for now into three categories. We will add to these later on. We have the ground position, which covers pretty much self-explanatory, the ground, but only really the movement areas, so effectively taxiways, and inactive runways, so runways that are not being used for takeoffs or landings. And ground's job is primarily to prevent collisions on the ground and ensuring an expeditious traffic flow and creating a sequence of aircraft to depart and making sure, if we're using multiple runways, that no single runway is being overloaded and things like that. Then we have the tower controller, who is responsible for effectively the border between the ground and the air. So this includes active runways, so runways which are being used for takeoffs and landings, and the airspace, which is in the immediate vicinity of the aerodrome. So these are the controllers who would be giving takeoff clearances and landing clearances. The tower controller's primary roles are to prevent collisions, again, you'll notice a theme, and to manage arrivals and departures, giving the appropriate priority to each, and making sure arrivals and departures mesh seamlessly and it all works nice and efficiently. Then we have a radar controller. Now, a radar controller will control using a radar, and they're responsible for kind of certain types of airspace that are not within the immediate vicinity of an aerodrome. Their role is then still to prevent collisions, this time in the air rather than on the ground or in the border between ground and air, and to sequence traffic efficiently to make sure that aircraft all get to their destination as quickly as possible. In DCS, a radar controller would also coordinate with the tactical command and control organizations to ensure the correct prioritization and to support the mission in that way. Speaking of DCS, we have to talk how we can apply air traffic control techniques into DCS. DCS is not a perfect simulator. Servers do crash, things are buggy, we have to deal with rubber banding, server lag. Even though we are not pilots, we still feel the effects of those things as controllers. And as well, LOT ATC is not perfect. It will crash. There are times when it does, or when it freezes, and in which case we have to work around these bugs while trying to maintain order, efficiency, and safety. During these crashes, we should obviously try and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. So if LOT ATC crashes, we would want to try and restart it or disconnect and reconnect to the server, for example. But in the meantime, while we are trying those things, we are able to revert to procedural control and just control using the information that is coming over the radio. And since none of the pilots are, or not many of the pilots are, do this in the real world, we need to be able to assess the skill and or competence of the pilots to be able to provide them with instructions that they understand and also can accomplish. So we would do this by potentially providing further assistance and clarifying instructions where necessary, even if not asked. You learn to be able to tell when someone hasn't understood what you've been saying. And with that, we also need to be prepared to deal with pilots who have maybe not thought ahead as much as they could have done, or also don't have the experience to know what could be coming. So to summarize ACAD-01, we have looked at the purpose of air traffic control and its major motto, safe and expeditious, and in that order. We looked at the types of control, both positive control and procedural control, and when we might use either. We had a look at different air traffic control positions. The ground controllers, controlling the taxiways and the inactive runways. The tower controllers, controlling the border between land and air. And the radar controllers, controlling everything not in the immediate vicinity of an aerodrome. We also had a quick look at how we apply air traffic control in DCS and how we can use those, and what we need to be prepared for, given that most pilots in DCS do not do it in the real world.